Night has a way of telling the truth, not with words, not with confessions, but with the way the city holds its breath when the clouds collapse over steel and stone. Listen long enough, and you can hear it. The world pausing between heartbeats, a hush that tastes like metal and memory. That's where I live now, in that space, between the silence and the storm. The streets are wet with old stories. You can see the past skimming their surface, faces blurred into river light, footsteps swallowed by asphalt and echo. I learned to walk softly here, not to hide, to measure, to know how the ground feels when it remembers the weight of a man who refused to fall. The rain doesn't care what it washes away. Names, promises, whatever clings when the night has had enough of pretending. There was a time I believed in warm rooms, in hands that didn't tremble when they reached for me. That time is gone, not buried, burned clean. What's left is organized and cold, not cruel, accurate. The body keeps a ledger of fire and frost. It doesn't lie. It notes the hours you spent staring down the ceiling, counting breaths until the ache settled into a shape you could carry without breaking. It remembers the way certain doors shut like verdicts. It remembers the quiet that followed. You learn more from silence than from 1,000 explanations. Silence doesn't negotiate. It doesn't plead. It doesn't sell you hope. It sits across from you like a mirror you can't shatter, and it makes you watch yourself become the thing you needed all along. I won't dress it in soft language. I won't paint it warm. Growth is not a sunrise in a catalog. It's the red edge on a sleepless horizon. It's the breath that hurts until it doesn't. It's the way you stop asking the dark to be gentle and ask yourself to be harder. There are rooms that still taste like goodbye. You can stand in them and hear the ghost of a chair scrape, the echo of a name that no longer belongs to your mouth. I don't visit often, but when I do, I keep the lights off. Let the window carry the wet gleam of the street up the walls. Watch the smoke unravel from the end of a cigarette, like a message the night already knows. Slow, precise, a glow that does not apologize for dying. They say we become what we survive. That may be true, but survival is an unfinished word. It needs teeth. It needs discipline. Endurance without clarity is another kind of drowning. And I stopped drowning the night I stopped expecting rescue. I learned the language of absence. I stopped translating it into hope. There's a clean austerity to that decision, a space where you can finally breathe without wondering who might steal the air. You keep your distance, not as punishment, but as calibration. The world reads it as cold. Let it. They weren't there when you had to stitch your own fractures shut in the dark. They weren't there when softness became a liability you could no longer afford. Chairs empty, phones quiet, windows reflecting only you. At first it feels like winter, endless and sterile. Then you understand. Winter is a teacher. The ground hardens so the roots can grip. The wind strips the leaves so the branches can learn their shape. You begin to like the way your footsteps count the night. You begin to trust the discipline of hunger. Every betrayal is a cartographer. It draws the edges of your country, where you end, where you refuse to begin again. I drew my borders in patient ink. I do not cross them, not for apologies spun out of convenience, not for hands that remember my warmth when their own rooms go cold. It took time to understand the difference between being feared and being respected. Fear is loud. Respect is quiet. Fear comes with a crowd and leaves with a grin. Respect arrives alone and doesn't knock. It waits in the rain, unreadable and steady. That's what I wanted from myself. Not volume, not spectacle, just the kind of stillness that does not negotiate with storms. So I practiced, not the kind of practice that begs applause, the private kind, the kind that looks like someone standing very still at a window at 3 a.m., counting the seconds between lightning and thunder, teaching himself to breathe at the speed of weather. I trained my hands to stop shaking. I trained my mind to stop bleeding out through memory. I trained my eyes to see patterns, not promises. Patterns have teeth. Patterns don't lie. You start losing people when you stop being available to their favorite versions of you. That's the cost. You pay it without receipts, without complaint. You accept that most kindnesses carry fine print. You accept that most loyalties are counterfeit under pressure. You accept, not in bitterness, but in architecture. Load-bearing truths, foundations that do not shift when the water rises. I built rooms inside myself when no one else has keys. Not as a fortress, as a library. Shelves lined with nights that didn't kill me. Pages written in smoke and salt. A catalog of the precise moments when I realized the difference between love and hunger, between devotion and use, between companionship and occupation. I visit these rooms when the world grows noisy. I run my fingers along the spine of what I learned. I leave with what I can carry, and I lock the door behind me. There is a violence in gentleness when it's honest. A steady hand closing a door. A voice that chooses not to answer. A step taken away from the table where your name was menu, not guest. People will call it cold. Let them. They never once asked what it cost to stay warm. Rain breaks upon the pavement with the patience of habit. Light pools in the gutters like coins no one is brave enough to spend. Some nights I walk until the city forgets me. I become another shadow, moving parallel to its own reflection, a metronome of soft steps and hard truths. I don't look for company. I look for signs, not prophecies, confirmations, the clean geometry of a boundary held, the relief that arrives when no one follows you into the dark. I am not auditioning for forgiveness. I am not campaigning for understanding. If you have to explain your worth to a room, that room is a debt you cannot afford. I speak to what listens. Empty streets, wet glass, flats of quiet above closed shops. A city that knows the names I don't say anymore. Once, there were hands I would have burned for. Once, there were faces I held like lanterns against the wind. Those hands dropped the flame. Those faces turned away. I learned to hold my own might. It's smaller, steadier. It doesn't pretend to be the sun. It's enough to see my next step, and enough to leave the rest of the night in its rightful place, untouched, unforgiven, uninterested in witnesses. This is not an origin story. I am past beginnings. What I carry now is maintenance, the disciplined tending of a fire I no longer worship, the quiet care of a blade I no longer swing without cause. I am not here to be healed by time. Time is a corridor. It does not hold you up. It only stretches in front of you and dares you to keep moving. I move, not fast, not slow, measured. People mistake quiet for emptiness. They don't understand the density of it, how silence can be heavy enough to anchor a life, how solitude can sharpen everything that matters and cut away everything that doesn't. They want a spectacle. I want a clean table and a closed door. They want noise. I want proof. There is a kind of peace that doesn't smile. It sits in your bones and refuses to argue. It is not soft or sweet. It is the conviction that you have finally stopped bargaining with your own reflection. You recognize the man in the glass. He does not flinch. He does not ask. He does not promise. He simply stands, not as a statue, not as a ghost, but as a fact. Tonight, the rain is steady. The city glows like a cigarette between the teeth of the horizon. The rooms are ready. The windows remember. The floor holds the map of my footfalls, old and new, departing and returning. Everything is arranged just as it needs to be. Spare, true, unforgiving in the way clarity must be to remain honest. If you came here for redemption, you took the wrong street. If you came here for vengeance, you're late. What waits ahead is simpler and more dangerous. A life maintained in shadow, a voice quiet enough to hear the weather inside the bones, a discipline tempered by nights that taught me endurance without illusion. The introductions have been paid for in breath and distance. I owe no one a prologue, but I offer this to the dark that listened when no one else did. I am ready to continue, not to begin, to continue. The work is the same as it always was. Walk forward, hold the line. Let what needs to fall, fall without ceremony. There's a window somewhere above the street where I once mistook comfort for safety. There's a chair that still faces the door out of habit. There's a coat drying on a hook near a heater that doesn't work, and a lighter that refuses to spark unless you turn it like you mean it. I know these details because I built a life from them, from small reliabilities, from tiny accuracies, from the refusal to decorate the truth with kindness that wasn't real. I am not untouchable. I am unbothered by what used to break me. I am not invincible. I am consistent in the places that count. There's a difference. One is a performance. The other is a result. So take this night the way I do, without witnesses, without noise, without hunger for what isn't owed. Stand at the glass, watch the city blur until it tells you your own name back in a language only you can recognize. Feel the weight settle in the right places. Let the rest fall away. This is the threshold, not a door or weather line between what was and what remains. On the other side, there will be rain and glass and footsteps that do not turn around. On the other side, there will be a man who learned that silence is not empty, it is exact. He will not ask for your trust. He will not invite your doubt. He will proceed. And when you think you hear the city speak, it's only the truth you've been avoiding, gathering itself in the corners of the room, wet and patient and mercilessly clear. We go on into the corridors where words are too slow, into the rooms where echoes are testimony enough, into the streets that teach you how to carry what you cannot drop. This is where I step. This is where the rain begins to say what I no longer need to. Listen, the next part is already walking toward you. Not louder, sharper, a continuation without apology, a voice without audience, a man without the need to explain. Now the night will speak in its own way, and I will let it, because what follows is not an answer. It is the arrival of a silence I no longer fear, a distance I no longer mourn, a clarity I will not trade. The rain is ready. So am I. Rain speaks louder than voices now. It slips down glass, soft and relentless. A reminder of every night I stood at a window, watching the world blur and remembering the clarity pain brings. in silence. Others are remade by it. I learn to read the storm that churns behind my own eyes, to light another cigarette and watch the ember fade, slow, the only warmth in a room too empty for echoes. I kept count of the footsteps that never returned, each absence a story carved in frost along the windowsill, a tally in the ledger of trust. It's quieter now, not peaceful, just honest. Every promise that vanished, every hand that pulled away, every door that closed, turned me to stone, smooth and cold and ancient. I don't look back, not for voices, not for ghosts, not for love masquerading as apology. I pace empty corridors beneath flickering streetlights, doubt following like a second shadow, audible only when the world pretends to sleep. There's no anger left, only architecture, walls built from disappointment, roofs supported by memory and steel. I shelter beneath them, dry while the city dreams in wet silence. People want the fire back, but I am rain now, cool, indifferent, shaping the night with every drop. Let them miss me, let them invent reasons. My reflection walks beside me in every puddle, older, sharper, silent as thunder withheld. This is the shape solitude sculpts, not emptiness, not death, but a new design, a blueprint drawn in the margins of pain. I walk it slow, every step deliberate, every silence earned. Growth needs no witness. The street is my cathedral. The storm is my confession. And strength is knowing no one is coming, not even me. There are places only night understands, corners where voices die before they reach the air, where street lamps flicker like memories you never trusted. Here I walk, a silhouette stitched into rain-soaked concrete. Nothing left to prove, nothing left to lose. People speak of forgiveness like it's currency, but I found my salvation in remembering. Each scar a sermon the world tried to hush. I don't pray for mercy. I don't confess regret. I worship only at altars built in silence and patience, where the hymns are thunder and the absolution is never given, only earned. Smoke curls from my lips, ghosts departing quietly. They fade, unburdened, into the alley's breath. What I was, burned. What I am, tempered. Stronger for the breaking, colder for the healing. I don't answer the knocking of old ghosts. I don't flinch at the weather inside. Let the crowd cling to warmth in each other. I survive because I learned to spark a flame from my own ruins. I am not seeking peace. Peace is a fable whispered to restless men. I'm seeking clarity, the mirror that doesn't lie when the world tries to paint over your reflection. Every footstep in this city is a vow, not to return, not to forgive, not to become the silence they wanted, but the storm they never saw coming. So I walk, deliberate, head bowed, collar raised, each night a cathedral of shadows, each dawn proof that I remain undaunted and alone. The world keeps turning, slow and indifferent, nights folding into mornings without apology. There is no rescue here, just the purity of self. A man standing beneath an unbroken sky, drinking in the distance between thunder and memory. Trust is a rare metal, mined alone in the dark. You learn its weight when you have nothing left to spend, when gold becomes stone and promises rust in the balm. I've grown used to the echo of my own footsteps, to the hush of empty rooms that never ask questions. Silence is familiar now, its edges honed, its lessons absolute. You memorize pain until it's a language spoken in glances, a currency traded in careful movements, slow, relentless. No one asks how you survived, only why you never let them inside again. But a fortress built from ruins is stronger than anything born untouched. I trust the architecture of scars, more honest than comfort, more enduring than hope. Let them seek answers in warmth and noise. I draw my power from clean distance, from seeing without being seen, from knowing what I am and never wanting to return. This is how men are remade in shadow, not forgiven, not embraced, but unwavering, even as the world forgets to remember their names. I walk beneath the unbroken sky, invisible, untamed, and my silence is the only monument they'll ever find. Some legacies aren't written in blood or gold. Mine is carved in the spaces between words, in the breath held at the edge of memory. I carry it quietly, a cloak of silence drawn tight against the world. It protects more than it isolates, though most never see the difference. Storms come and go, predictable as betrayal. I don't brace for the impact. I let the rain wash over me, soaking into marrow, rinsing history from skin. Each drop a small erasure, a small benediction. People say time changes a man. They never understand how much a man can change without the world noticing at all. Each day, a sliver of hope dies quietly, replaced by a sharper edge, a steadier hand. I don't raise my voice. I don't plead my case. A ledger's been written, and I am both author and executor. I let them collect their narratives, like debts paid in whispers. It doesn't matter now. Strength is found in not wanting an audience, in letting the echoes fade and the rooms grow still. There's peace in detachment, power in letting the past belong to those who need it most. I move on, slow and certain as shadow, carrying my only true inheritance, the lessons burned into silence. A man has walked through enough midnight, no longer fears what he cannot see. Solitude becomes map and compass, a path drawn in dark ink, all his own. I have outlived every ghost, outweighted every apology, outgrown every cage built by familiar hands. Now, at the threshold of something unnamed, I pause. Rain at my back, horizon ahead, the city humming beneath my boots. No more need for explanations, no hunger for validation. What I am is what's left after longing is spent. A man made of weather and resolve, reborn not into light, but into clarity. Let them remember or forget me as they wish. I have become both storm and shelter, the answer to every silence they dared to leave unbroken. And as the last echo fades into morning, I remain, present as rain, solid as shadow, untouchable, unbound.